Hello, everyone. This is the Freelance episode 4, and I'm joined by Nick. Nick,
Good
hello.
evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I mean, we'll probably talk a bit about some of these things when we talk about like upcoming events and stuff. But I'm in the middle of a run of 3 weekends of like doing reenactment or reenactment adjacent things. So
Yeah,
kind of tired, but like they've been good. They've been good weekends so far. So
good.
how about you? How are you?
I'm doing okay as well. I've started my kind of summer regime of trying to get back into relative fitness, ready for putting on far too much armor on extremely hot weekends. So I'm cycling to work now. Again, now that the weather's better, and I'm just having to remind myself that I need more calories because I was absolutely exhausted after work today. So yeah, need to make sure that I'm eating to match my my expenditure when it comes to calories. Yeah.
Yes.
We've got a few people joining us already. Please do let us know. Hopefully you can hear us. Let us know in the chat if everything is working okay. Hopefully it is. The lady is saying hello. Hello, Lottie. Lotte, isn't it? I would say Lottie, but I think it's Lotte because, yeah, I pronounce everything with an English accent. Yeah, so we're here. We're going to be talking about movie fight scenes this month, and we've got some that have been selected by some of my Patreons. So we're going to give them a rating, and just basically tell you which ones are good and which ones are not good. Completely objective. We're gonna.
Yeah. Absolutely. Completely objective. Absolute industry experts here.
Yeah, unarguable is I think. Yeah. Frederick says that he can hear us loud and clear, and Donna says that so can she. So that is great.
As a good
to
start.
Yeah. So shall we move on to projects?
Oh, yeah.
What have you been working on, Nick?
So it's been a couple of months because I wasn't on last month. So in the last 2 months, I have finished 3 liveries, a scabbard for one of my LARP weapons. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Reenactment project wise, I had a pretty industrious end to April in the run up to playing at Empire. So I had finished the scabbard. Decided 1 week before the event that no, I wanted my own livery, not borrowing one. So set to and made one of those.
Okay. So what's the livery made out of?
So it's just a wool livery vest, basically to go over my brig and protect it, but also kind of household colors in the game.
Yeah. How many liveries do you own now? Because you lend them out every Tewkesbury. How many?
So I have a red Middleton livery. I have a Burgundian livery. I have the Talbot livery for LARP. I have a whole set of Middleton Bens for the group. The group has Burgundian liveries, which I help make. I have another red Middleton livery, which doesn't fit me anymore. That was like a plover type design that doesn't fit over my shoulders or around my waist anymore. So I might pass that on to somebody somewhat smaller. And I was actually thinking the other day that I do need a couple of Murray and Azure Gloucester like livery vests for attendance at Tewkesbury that like might need to be on the list. But I need to talk to the folks who are involved to find out if that's a useful thing to do, because they're not the hardest thing in the world to make, but they are enough effort that if they're not useful, then I don't want to be expending that effort to do that.
Yeah. So when we're talking about livery coats, we're basically talking about a waistcoat with like a skirt attached, isn't it? Yeah. So there needs to be seams on it. Like, it's not just a t-shirt kind of thing.
Yeah, it has a very definite waist, very deep armholes, no collar. Tends to be the situation in the description. It's not the livery the livery vest that I'm talking about are not coats. They are like small overgarments and they're pictured in multiple different places in the sources, being both used in a military and in a civilian context. So
So I've got a silk one of those, but my mum's been sewing my my wool one as well, because I have a theory. She does most of my fabric sewing.
Does she sew a name tape in them for you?
Yeah. Well, you say that. She does like to embroider things, so we could always do that. No, I tend to do leather work and woodwork, and I'm trying a little bit of metalwork, but she does most of the sewing. I've got a wool one that should be able to be worn underneath armor, because I keep seeing coats peeking out under the bottom of folds.
It's interesting. One of the things at Empire a couple of weeks ago, there was a pretty cold weekend, and we had a very late skirmish that was starting at like 9 p.m. on the Saturday evening. And for that, I wore a coat underneath my brig.
Yeah.
Just because it was cold, and just like not wearing it, I would have been really.
It makes a big difference from a comfort point of view, doesn't it? Like,
I mean, yeah, it's I find even wearing armor in the cold, even though your kind of body feels warmer and you're sweating, like the heat disappears very, very quickly through the metal. So having that extra layer of wool was useful then. I would not have done that. I think even during the daytime at that event, that would have been too warm. But after sundown,
it
was well worth it.
Yeah, good. I have been working on Scabbard, which is finally finished. So it's now not incredibly bright pink. So I did a video about how you should always test your leather dye, and then about how I went about finishing this up.
You got a good polish on there.
Yeah, it's got a nice. It's come up really nicely, actually. I accidentally dyed it pink, basically, and then I've over dyed it with a black, and it's come up this nice deep purple. And I also redid the hilt. This is a St. George armory sword, and he tends to thick grips. So I stripped down the leather around that, sanded down so that it fit my hand a bit better, and then rewrapped it. I don't know if you can see the it's got a couple of risers in it as well, just to add some detail. So, and a Todd Workshop shape on the end. So really happy with that. That needed to be done. And
you're doing a knot or a locket for the suspension?
I'm going to be doing a little buckle that goes around it, and then it ties to my fold. So my fold's got a staple on it,
right?
That it ties to. So, yeah,
very good.
I'll probably do a video on that because it was an interesting aspect of the effigy.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I find that the suspension of sword harness is an odd one.
What's that? Sorry.
So suspension, like, I'm forever fighting with my suspension, not in terms of like making it match what you see in illustrations, but in terms of it not getting. So I'll be interested to see how much the sword kind of flaps around and moves and gets in the way of people around you, attached to the fold rather than suspended from a belt. Super interesting.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because it definitely, you see it in art of the period. So let's see how it works. Lotta says interesting pommel design, and Mitchell says reminding me that my sword needs its handle rewrapping. Yep. Get on with it. All of the jobs that you've done in the winter, that's what the spring is now for. The pommel design, again, someone else asked about the pommel design, and I was thinking it would be good to do a video on that. Maybe get Matt involved as well on different pommel designs and what they're good for, because it's not just aesthetics.
Smashing people in the face.
Yeah, and some allow you different grips than others, or are more comfortable for different grips. And then I've also finished my standard, my male standard. I'm really really rigid up the throat, because in the photos of last Tewkesbury, it was drooping rather dramatically in some of them. So I thought, right, let's go full English, right up underneath the chin, and it's got buckles on the back now. We'll see how it all goes. The only question is, do I want to dye the leather along the top?
Personally, I think it should be pink.
The bright like magenta pink that my scabbard was. Yeah, probably.
So, and then my standard is undyed. My standard started undyed, like the leather across the top started undyed. It is now a very definite grime dye.
Yeah,
I do not think that much dye will survive very long here without getting super grimy.
Yeah, it is. It is going to get mucky, but then, the medieval aesthetic is extremely colorful. Like, you can't get away from that. So that's my next decision. I think it might end up going red rather than pink. I know Mitchell says pink is a Chad move. I see what you're saying, but it's just the
it's a Jane's fine hat kind of thing. Also, I just learned that if I reply to somebody in chat, the Restream software assumes that it's you. So I just get to cosplay as now in chat. So there we go.
Oh, you can make me say anything you want.
Apparently so.
I hereby donate all of my weapons and armor to Nick Doris. Yeah. So yeah, be careful. You might think that you're talking to me, but you're actually talking to Nick.
Apparently
It
so.
is nice and tight. It does go up high under the chin. It's not very padded, but then I haven't been wearing it padded, and actually, it for the most part is going to go underneath my, so I don't feel the need for much padding there. And then Texas Beast says, man walks into a tourney with a hue like that, tells the world he doesn't care what anybody thinks. That's true. It is true. But someone did send me, I can't remember who it was, but it was really, really helpful. There's a thread on myarmory.com, which has, someone did loads of leather dyeing with natural dyes. And they've created all of these swatches with all of these dyes that you can get, what colors you can get. And the pink that I have is not one of those colors, I'm afraid. So yeah,
that's sad.
There we are. Yeah, it is sad. Right, go on to the next segment, unless you've
yeah. No, I think we've very much exhausted your dying.
Okay, the next one is research. Nick, have you done any research recently?
I was gonna say no, but kind of. So I was introduced to a dice game at Empire, and I have been looking into the provenance of that dice game to find out if I can use it at public events.
Okay, cool.
More on that if and when I find out more details.
Yeah,
it might end up with me buying a book about the history of dice games from eBay. So
yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
Cool. Very good. I have. I think I sent you some pictures from a 16th century book.
Yes.
Of some tents, and now I really want to.
You want to make a walled. You want to build a castle out of tents. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like a central keep, 4 corner towers.
That's it. Yeah, with walls all around and like a gate in the walls. Yeah, because they did it. So we have evidence that they did it. So therefore, we should do it.
And yes, Mitch, it is the game we played. I'm still digging for how old it is, but you know.
Well, I'm interested to find out about this game, even if it can only be played after hours at the.
Yeah.
So that should be good.
Yeah. Well, more when I know more.
At some point, I definitely want to get along to a LARP. So maybe in a future year, I'll make myself some LARP weapons and upgrade my kit with some aluminium or something, and come along with you.
That's a whole entire episode of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely need to do it. And that wasn't me being like mean about it, by the way. I have a sheet of aluminium here because I'm working on my son's armor, and because he's 4, I don't want to like damage him by putting him into heavy armor, but I do want him to have armor. So yeah, I really think that if it's right to use aluminium for what you're doing, use aluminium. Yeah.
It's about the look at the end of it in certain circumstances, and if you can get aluminium to look right, then so be it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many armor pieces that are covered in fabric and things like that anyway. Right. So speaking of LARP events,
Yeah.
You've had some events, so I'll hand this over to you.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago I was at Empire, which was my first like big festival LARP. I had a great time. Shout out to the Marches and to the Talbots for having me, and like I had loads of fun. It was exhausting, but it was great. And then last weekend, the group I helped run, Middletons, we had our kind of start of year training shakedown event. Which again was really fun. We had one day was a bit miserable with the weather, but the pack down day was fantastically sunny, so we put away dry tents. So well, most of us did. Those people who went home on Saturday evening didn't bonus, but there we go. Cool. Some training, late nights in the site that we were using has like a barn. Lanterns and dice games and things. It was very cool. And then next weekend, I'm helping the local training group run their training event, and I'm going into that with a much more heavy kind of organized, structured training sessions focus rather than a shakedown. So it's kind of 3 very different things across 3 weekends, but 3 weekends in a row in kit, in armor, doing things.
Yeah.
Nice. And then looking ahead to June and Barnet.
Yeah, that's kind of what's looming for me. So I haven't had any events, but Barnet is going to be my first one of the season, and I will I'll be there with the Middletons, so camping with Nick and his lot. And I'm just looking, I've got a list on my wall behind my computer, which is all to do. And it is a month. It's basically exactly a month, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, this time next month will be like building up to the event the next weekend, right?
Yeah. Packing and things like that. So,
yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I've never been to Barnet before. You've done it before, haven't you?
Yeah, I think this will be our 3rd time there as Middletons.
Yeah. So a few people have asked. Yeah, it looks it. A few people have asked whether I'm jousting at all this year, and the answer, not in the chat, but like around. But the answer is no. I have, for a long time, I've been doing jousts, and then I like went to Tewkesbury for like a weekend for me, kind of thing, and then I realised actually this is all a hobby and it should all be for me. So so I'm taking a year to get my armor sorted. I've got the new armor that arrived at Christmas. Get all of that sorted, get it all for me, and not doing any jousting, and just reenacting and kind of trying to understand what parts of it I miss and what parts of it I don't, so that then I can make sure that my hobby is actually for me. I think that's important,
Yeah.
We don't get unlimited weekends away. Need to make the best of what we've got. People are saying that I should definitely do some LARPing. Lotta says that she's thinking of dire standard as well. Yeah, good too. Yours is already quite dark, so it'd be tricky to get it up to a brighter one. But you can always dye over the top and change it a bit. And apparently the Middletons are a bunch of scheming ne'er-do-wells, and if you play dice games, you lose your money.
You've just got to be better at cheating. If you lost your money, it's because you weren't good enough at cheating. That's how most medieval dice games work.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good. So, that is it. We've gone through our segments. If you have any questions, just a reminder, you can always put those in there. And then we'll answer some at the end. But we're just going to go into our film fight scenes segment. And let me just explain how this is going to work. Chrome tab.
While Zach's figuring out finding his presentation, I would for him to remind people to like, share, and subscribe to the video if you're enjoying what's going on here. It helps Zach continue to do this.
Yes, it does indeed. And you can always go and support over on Patreon as well, where where you get a bit more of a say in what's going on the channel and what we do in our live streams and things like that. So yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Nick. I always forget to do those. That's very good. Here we have The Freelance, episode 4. We're going to be looking at 6 fight scenes.
6, yeah.
And we're going to be rating them on costume and armor, weapons, fight realism, and storytelling within the fight. Now, we'll be giving each one of those parts a score out of 5, and then there'll be a total at the end of it. So we'll know which of these fights is empirically and objectively the best fight.
And I do want to say that shout out to your patrons for managing to pick a bunch of fight scenes that I hadn't watched, so I had to go into these cold with like no idea what I was expecting. So yeah. That was pretty different. Like I was expecting like a bunch of standard fight scenes, so you know this was cool.
Yeah, we the classic ones like Princess Bride and Aragorn versus Lurtz and stuff like that. Like great fight scenes, but it was nice to have ones that I'd never seen before. And we're not going to be showing them on the stream because some of them get a bit gory, and I'm not entirely sure what would happen with like monetization and or copyright if we were to show the actual fight scene. So we've watched these, and you can always we found all of them on YouTube, so you can find them if you want to watch them and see them for yourselves. So Black Sails, I think. So another thing that was nice about this was that I was able to watch these fight scenes without watching any of the rest of the program. So yeah, that was an interesting, because when we get to the storytelling part of it, there's some which just stand alone really nicely, and kind of it's very clear what's going on, and then there's some where if you don't know everything that's going on already, then that's tricky. So yeah. Okay, Black Sails. So I think this is a retelling of Treasure Island, but I'm not entirely sure.
You already know more about the show than I do.
Okay. That was just while searching for this this photo. I kind of it had like the names of the characters. I was like, hang on a second, aren't they from Treasure Island? So okay, so this was a cutlass fight, which appears to be kind of classic pirates. So it's not what we're used to.
It's a judicial combat, right?
Yeah.
Like
and
this is
go on.
classic. It's a classic. I've accused you of doing something. You're going to fight me to prove that you're innocent. Like,
yeah. I don't know if they did those on board pirate ships, but it was, it seemed to work well. It was a good way of getting them into a fight.
Yep.
So costume/armor. I'm not very used to this period, but I am pretty sure that the big clumpy 17th century riding boots were generally not worn by pirates. I know they're a huge part of what we expect pirates to be wearing, but I don't think that they were especially piratey.
I will say that there was I was impressed by the lack of silly hats.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I did a reasonable amount of sailing in my youth, and big hats get blown off on ships.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Yeah. And although the color scheme is quite muted, it's not like everyone's dirty. The ship's covered in mud. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it all looks well cared for.
And I don't know if this comes under the costume and armor, but I really appreciated that this fight was bright. A lot of us other fight scenes in movies, they seem to like to make things look dark, like they've applied a filter over the camera and kind of darkened it down post-production or whatever. I liked that this was in daylight. You could see what was happening.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think it's a solid 2. I'm going to go with a 2 for costumes and armor here.
Okay. I was angling on a 3. But mostly because I don't really know very much about this period.
That's fair. That's fair.
I can't pick on the things. So I'm happy to go with your 2.
I want to say that like any of our comments about any of the shows or fights that come in here are not like damning criticism of anything going on. If people enjoy things, that's good. Liking things is better than hating things. Like, it's generally just a better position to be in. So if you like this show, I am really glad, because it's cool that shows are like, there are shows that people like.
Yeah. Oh, I've just seen it's definitely a 2 because the guy's wearing braces for no reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah. The obligatory historical bracer.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Weapons. There were only really there were more than just 2 weapons, weren't there? It got a bit brutal towards the end.
Yes. So there was not a lot of finesse involved here, which I think is like, I don't know. I've not really wielded a cutlass before, so I don't know, but they feel like they're going to be pretty hacky. And then like the culmination of the fight being like battering someone with a cannonball, like I mean, that's effective use of an improvised weapon. I will give them that, and definitely meant that this fight didn't go in the way that I was expecting it to.
Yeah, and I think that everything here was completely within the realms of realism for this thing from a weapons point of view. Not necessarily the way that they use them, but
and like getting hit in the head with a cannonball, probably going to do damage. Yeah.
And the cutlasses aren't crazy. They might be maybe a little bit low, but I don't know how tall these guys are, so it's hard to say. So what are we giving it? I'm angling high for weapons.
I mean, I'd put this at like a 3.5 to a 4. Like, there wasn't
I-
anything glaring here that stuck out at me as like that's completely inappropriate for what's going on. So
Okay, I'll go with 4 because I was thinking around 4.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with it, but nothing that makes you go, "Wow, that's cool."
Yeah.
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 Okay, fight realism. So as you can see in the picture that I've chosen, we've got the guy over here is kind of a bit of a brutal brawler chap. This guy tries a bit of stances and things like that, ends up not doing so well by the end of it, and then it devolves even further into fistfights and cannonballs. So, fight realism. What do we think? So one thing, okay, so what often gets said in fights like this is that someone's telegraphing, and the big guy did some really big hits, like really telegraphing them and winding up for them with a big shout and all of that sort of thing. And that isn't what you should do if you are trying to kill someone quickly, necessarily. But there is a tactic to using that,
Yeah.
If you are wanting to, there's a psychological aspect to a fight as well. And just winding up with some really big overhead cuts, screaming and shouting, can push past someone's training and just get to their reactions, and if they're then not able to think with like the higher functions of the brain, that can push it to an advantage for you. So it wasn't the best way of fighting, but I can see that you might, if you felt like you could get an advantage from doing that, you might want to do something like that. What did you think?
I felt that the biggest nod towards realism that this fight had was that it was very apparent that these both combatants weren't like super trained.
Yeah.
And like maybe that speaks more to a storytelling piece here, but like if these two were supposed to not be expert swordsmen, then this was pretty realistic. But if the like surrounding character development here is that one of them was supposed to be an excellent swordsman, like this fight was unrealistic from that perspective.
Yeah.
I would stick this like somewhere in the middle. And I think I would be inclined to give, and I'll talk about this in a second, but give this fight more points for storytelling and less for realism.
Okay.
Rather than the other way around, would be my feeling on this.
Okay. Yeah. I felt like, you're right. I felt the fight did kind of tell that story, and it did show their characters being not amazing at fighting, but also that they were willing to it did a lot of storytelling through it, but then there was a lot of just kind of big, heavily telegraphed blows along with static blocks and no riposte.
Yes.
So should we go 3?
Yeah, I think that's all right.
And then storytelling. We've kind of been talking about the storytelling all the way through. Push the storytelling up a little bit, do you think?
Yeah. So I mean, I one of the things I thought was interesting about this, that the story here that I got, like not knowing the context of the show, not knowing like what's going on here. I don't know if the person who lost was actually guilty, like what story is being told after that. This felt like a fight that started a story or that was like towards the beginning of a story, not a fight that was a payoff.
Yeah.
And I was left with questions that like I want to find out the answers to. So in the context of like engaging people in their show, they left me wanting to know what happened next. Like, what was this guy telling the truth? Like the way that like the rest of the group reacted to the end of this fight suggests that like that side of the character that won was like a surprising turn. So again, that's like an interesting story that they're trying to tell here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that the storytelling in this was pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was the strongest on our list.
No, that's fair.
But I agree that not having had any desire to watch Black Sails before, I'm now having seen this. I'm like, okay, I could see myself watching this.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I agree.
So should we go with 4?
Yeah, I think a 4 is a good one here.
Okay, which gives us a total of 13. Pretty good.
Yeah.
13 out of 20. Not a bad start. Let's see what the chat has been up to while we've been waffling on.
I think it's about the show.
Okay.
The premise of the show being, you were right, related to Treasure Island, but like a prequel and then more stuff. And
okay.
Yeah, I think the comment like anything, you need to take any form of historian head off and just enjoy the narrative. Like I think that's probably true for a lot of things that we're going to talk about. It's a really good point, Mitch. And
yeah,
one of the things that I find interesting about that is where you take a historian head off and try and enjoy the narrative, and then you realize that it's just got a bad story, and that's kind of that sucks. But this one might not. Maybe I'll go watch it now.
Yeah. I think the important thing as well, though, is to understand that you can enjoy something in multiple different ways, right?
Yes.
So there's probably a couple of fights on here that are going to score really, really low in certain areas, but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy them. And that's why we kind of broke it down into these separate sections. And, you know, you can enjoy watching it and enjoy these programs, but you can also enjoy sitting around and talking about it afterwards. And that's kind of that's the part of the enjoyment we're doing now. So Anarian is seems to have made it their life's work to remind me that I need to get a video of Drac running in armor. I will tell you the reason why we haven't done that yet is because what I would really do is get a video of Drac. Basically, Drac and Matt and myself, Matt Easton, all live reasonably close to each other. So what I'd like to do is book a filming day with the both of them and do like bucket list, including Matt suggested an interview thing in a pub. I think like a proper British pub, if we can find one, sitting in armchairs by a fire. I think that would be awesome.
I mean, there's a British pub down the road from me, just saying.
There we go. So yeah, it's on the list, but I want to do these things. I want to do them well, and maybe involve a pub if we can. Okay, so Black Sails, total of 13. So now we've got the Conan battle.
Oh boy.
Talking of fight scenes that are eminently enjoyable, but also will get some low scores here.
Yep.
So it's been a long time since I've watched Conan. I think at least 6 years since I last watched the film. So it was good because yeah. My friend Will and I used to go and work for English Heritage for a week in the summer, and while we were sitting in the hotel in the evening, we'd watch sword and sorcery films. So I think it was about 6 years ago that we last did that. So good times. Anyway, costume and armor for Conan the Barbarian.
I'm going to say here that like any points that I could possibly give this for costume and armor have to just go into the storytelling category.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's wacky. It's very sword and sorcery. Almost none of it is functional, and in some situations, it's the opposite of functional.
Actually harmful.
yeah, actively harmful towards the person wearing it. Like makes them worse at fighting and defending themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't give this a high score, but every piece of armor in here is designed to tell you something about the character.
Yeah.
So they clearly thought pretty hard about that. So I'm going to stick in it like a half a point in storytelling for that.
Okay.
For me, this is like a.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that there's actually anything armor related that is good about these costumes. I was thinking of one as well, and I'm in trouble for this because it's a well-loved film, but we're being objective. There is nothing. If you were to show this to an armorer who made armor for a living to help people fight and survive in real battles, then they would look at you as if they would need to throw it out and start again. So that's why it's getting a 1 from me. Weapons. I mean, it's not far off a 1.
Again, I'm gonna take. I appreciated there were a number of moments where people who were using short weapons were not effective against people on horseback, and people using spears were.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's an extra point for fight realism or an extra point for weapons, but like I enjoyed that detail and thought that was good.
Yeah. I think that's into fight realism. I think weapons is just literally, if I was to offer you any of the weapons, if we were going into battle and I showed you these weapons, would you want to take them?
I mean, there was a spear. That is usually my preferred pole arm when I'm not in full harness. So I'm going to give this a 2 for weapons.
Okay.
It's not a 1 for me here.
I don't remember exactly what the spear looked like, but I'm happy to go with your 2. Yeah. I mean, even just look at that axe. Like he's got there.
Just
yeah. Fight realism. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say. Yeah, go on.
The hammer onto the helmet that triggers the trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what that does for this fight realism score. Just that exists in this scene, but that did fill me with joy seeing that.
Yeah. And there's a variety of gore shots and things like that. Like,
and maybe this comes to a storytelling thing, but there's like a thing about this scene where like there's a prepared environment that is advantageous to the defender.
Yeah.
And that is realistic.
It is.
The preparations might not have been particularly realistic.
I think it needs to go into storytelling from that point of view.
Okay.
But fight realism. I'm tempted to go with a 2 again, because again, it's like if you showed that the moves that they were doing, if you showed that to someone, like on the previous one, you would believe that they were actually trying to kill each other. Here, you didn't even believe that.
True, although it is. I suppose I can't even say that it is a product of its time, because there are other films with fight scenes in from this period of time which have much better choreographed and much more realistic's not entirely the word, but like moving towards realistic than this film as well.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to like some of the other, I think a 2 is fair here.
Okay, good. Right. Storytelling. I think this is where we can put a lot more into there. The speech at the beginning, that Conan gives, it just sets a high tone for the storytelling.
Yeah.
It tells you everything you need to know about this guy, even though, you know, Arnie's known for his slightly wooden delivery, but from the offset, you know exactly what's going on. From the costumes, you know exactly who's who. You've got distinct silhouettes.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's the strongest one on our list.
No, but I could be talked into giving this a 4 for storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with the 4.
Because there's definitely other fights here which are significantly weaker on the storytelling front as well.
Yeah. And this is, it's not quite, but it's almost like a 3-act structure in itself.
Yes.
Like if you showed this as a short film, it almost works out. It's almost kind of a bit too heavy on the fight rather than the story.
Yeah.
But you know everything about that's going on. So yeah. 4.
Yep.
Storytelling. So the total here is 9.
Sorry, Arnie.
There we go. 9. But strong from a storytelling point of view. Now, the 13th Warrior Duel. Now this is one that I'd seen a long time ago, possibly like when I was 16. You've never seen it before, right?
I don't think I have. So I will say that I think 13th Warrior is one of these movies that I have consistently come second place when I've had a choice of 2 bad movies to watch.
Yeah.
So I've never 2 movies in this vein, right? Like bad is an unfair thing to say here. 2 movies that are going to be take my brain out and just like let stuff happen. And it's consistently been second place over other things that I've been more interested in watching for a large number of years. So I've never watched this.
Yeah. And I think a large part of that probably is down to the costume. The costumes being quite weak. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
Like main, and I don't know the names of any of these characters in this, but like main character on the right here, who's in the shirt, like it's not terrible. It's like looks like a linen shirt, short sleeves, a bit weird, but there you go. But then the guy at the back with the like leather gorget and little shoulder pieces and like that's no good.
Yeah. And I think that's such a shame, because there's some other really strong aspects to this film and to this fight that to see this still picture, you would just be like, I'm not watching that.
And like look at this, like that shield, like the shields used here, they felt much too small for me.
Yeah.
I noticed that there was like back scabbards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as someone who likes military history and history in general, those are like they're instant no-nos that make you then like it pushes the film further down, and then you go, oh,
Yeah.
No, I'll watch something else. So costume and armor, we're not particularly happy with costume and armor here.
Yeah, this is a 1.
Yeah. It looks almost like maybe some of the background characters might be slightly better than
it's extras with better costume, yeah.
Which is sometimes the case, because they've just often with these productions, they then they'll go to a prop store and say like, oh, can we have some Saxon stuff or whatever, or Viking costumes, and then they may end up getting quite accurate ones, which they then often dress up incorrectly, but you know, you can't have everything. Okay, weapons, and I guess we can say shields as well. So I
don't think the swords are too bad. They've got a pretty good profile for this period. Lots of slashing attacks.
Yeah.
Like the premise of this fight being to like destroy your opponent's shield. Like you're going to do that by making hacking and slashing and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're kind of rattling on the shield before you start.
Yeah.
It's pretty, as I understand, pretty accurate to the broad period like this is set in.
Yeah.
I
think the swords.
Not sure about the one blow decapitation, but
well, that would come under fight realism, but
sure, okay.
But I think the swords are good, not great, but good. It's nice to see the like the migration period style hilts like pieced together. It would be very easy to have them using later long swords and things like that.
Yeah, or the Norman style.
Yeah. And some of them even have lobes on the pommel, which is good. I think, yeah, as you say, maybe the shields are a bit small, but then this guy is quite big, so I didn't really, think about that while I was watching it.
Well, but the other like main character chap in this fight, his shields were not particularly large either,
and the shields are inaccurate from other points of view,
made of cheese, and made of cheese.
Also wood, at least. Yeah, they're strapped onto the arm instead of center boss. They've got rather too many rivets in them, and strangely look a bit too thick actually in many places.
Yeah.
So if we were to say, for example, to give the swords a 4 and the shields a 2,
I think that's fair.
Oh, but then there's the guy in the background.
He's not in the duel, right? Like he's part of the scene setting, which we can deal with under the. We punished the film for.
Yeah. His is under the costume and armor, isn't it? Yeah. He's not holding a weapon. Okay, so we'll give it. We're 3 in the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
Fight realism. So, the 3 shields format is accurate, isn't it?
My understanding is that that's like reasonably accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. The actual moves that are going on are not quite right. Not right, basically. But then, in part, that I think is to do with the fact that the shields are incorrectly made, so your movements are going to be wrong if your equipment is incorrect.
Yeah.
I think. I'm tempted to go reasonably high on this because I do like the fact that they did the like disposable shield.
Yeah. It definitely has a real solid root in something appropriate and historical. So I mean, I'd be comfortable with a middling score here. I don't think it's like ultra realistic.
Yeah. Should we go
again,
for 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And again, like I appreciate that this fight was in the daylight.
Yeah. It was clear what was going on, even down to like choice of hair color.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, the other guy is wearing a jerkin over his shirt. They're things that you might not necessarily think about, but it really this is probably goes into the storytelling side of things rather than the fight.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
But it's all very clear what is going on.
Yeah.
You're never in doubt. Which so for storytelling, I'm going to put it out there. I think this is the best one on our list.
Oh no, I can't agree with that. I don't think this is the best one on our list.
Okay.
And but because I think there's something better.
Okay. So
but and the other thing that
if I give you the case for, and then
sure, yeah,
and then you can
and
rebut,
I'll
right?
tell you why. What brings it down for me?
Okay. The thing about this fight is, like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen this film. I knew everything that I needed to know about all of the different characters at the right time. The fight is used to tell a story, but also to develop all of the characters that take part in it, not just the two fighters, but also all of the onlookers. And actually, the character development of the onlookers is almost the point of this fight, right? It's not just a fight for a fight's sake. This is moving on the plot, but it's also character development. And what's also really nice is that it does have that kind of like three parts to it. The three distinct acts of, you start off with Antonio Banderas's character, like at the beginning before the fight starts, and he's worried and he's trying to persuade everyone to make it stop and all of that sort of thing. And then you get to the actual fight where the blonde guy is constantly losing, and then you get to the end where you find out that it was part of a tactic, like as part of their mission, that he decided to do that, and so on. So it had a satisfying arc to the fight, and I don't feel like there was a wasted moment in it. I think everything was developing either the story, overall story, the characters, or the fight, or was important to the fight itself. So go on.
So I think that the fight did not make me care enough about the participants to give this top storytelling score.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
And it felt this fight was a vehicle for other characters' development. Obviously, the guy that lost didn't learn anything from this, didn't change as a person, and the guy that won is the same person at the start of the fight and at the end of the fight.
Yeah.
So everything that goes on here is in service of another character.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's why I don't think this is quite up there. as being like top point storytelling, but I do think it's really, really, really strong.
Okay. So what are we going to go with? Should we?
I mean, you clearly want to give this a 5, and I want to give this a 4. So I mean, we can split that between it. Like the number system does allow for fractional scores.
Okay. Let's go 4.5, and that gives us a total of 11.5.
Which is really interesting because I think this is a much better scene than the Black Sails one. But
yeah, which I think goes to show, like, from a weighting point of view, actually, yes, enjoyment.
Yeah,
the storytelling is the most important thing, right?
Yeah,
but often, and the example I would give would be yourself, the costume side of things is like the gate that you need to get people through, right?
And on that subject, I want to address what somebody said in chat here about 13th Warrior being why you're banned from watching history themed movies with your friends. Like I do find that sometimes I ride that line with people. Yeah, like going to historical films, like, okay, are you gonna? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. But
yeah,
and, archaeologically active round shields being extremely durable. Yep. Like wood covered in leather that's been treated is gonna be pretty tough to break down.
So there's archaeological evidence as well that they thinned it towards the edge with the round shields. And there's a chap called Roland who has done tests with it, and he said one of his theories is that allows you to get a better bind with the shield, because if someone hacks into your shield, the sword with a sharp weapon, the sword goes in easily for about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters, and then it gets stuck in the thicker wood. And once it's then stuck in the edge of your shield, you're then in control of that sword.
I buy that. I buy that. That seems reasonable.
It does. It seems very logical, and it's one of those things that we as reenactors don't get to see so much, is the effect that having a sharp weapon has on your equipment over having a blunt weapon. Yep. Okay. Here we go. I'm sorry, guys. I really tried to watch this. It felt like someone was trying to remake that battle from Game of Thrones.
I mean,
all of the overhead shots.
So this, and I don't know if it was a product of the video that I was watching, because I've not seen this. This is a movie, direct-to-TV movie, something like that. I've not watched the whole thing. I only watched, and either this is the poster child for something I hate about media fight choreography, or the way that somebody has cut together this collection of things from the film is because it's interspersed around other narrative going on that I didn't see. But I really, really dislike the constant cutting on every blow. And like some pro wrestling companies do this as well. Like every single impact is caught with a camera cut. Almost all of these scenes had this to a degree, but this one in particular, I don't know which category this comes under, but it really detracts, I think, from your fight scene to have all of these fast cuts rather than letting it play out in front of the viewer. And as somebody who has done theatrical combat, you know, different kinds of fighting, all it's telling me, what the medium that you're using to give me your message is telling me, is that your choreography is not up to scratch, that you are trying to hide it behind the cuts.
Yeah. And I think fast cutting basically says we don't care, right?
Yeah.
If we go back to the Black Sails one, where the most important moment is the one that they lingered on, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's all one shot, the guy's face. Yeah.
And all of the, like, this just, nothing about it made me care for any of the people in it.
No.
I did. Anyway, let's go. Costume and armor.
All
Again,
right. This isn't a one for me because a huge number of the extras had equipment for the period.
Yes. Yeah.
And that elevated this from a 1.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, the extras again have got better equipment than the main characters. None of the main characters are wearing helmets. Seriously, Lord of the Rings was released 20 years ago.
So much better.
And they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can put a main character in a helmet.
Yes.
A lot of those main characters wear helmets. Like,
and square shields. These square shields, I mean,
yeah. I assume it was done.
They look like they're made of cheese.
Yeah, which army is which, right? But it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
No. It doesn't help with the cinematography here. No.
And there are other ways that you can do it. Paint the shields different colors. That will actually work better because the eye picks up on color before shape, right? And the speed of the cuts was such that you almost don't have enough time to see it. So you just see brown shapes, black shapes,
just a smears of brown all over.
Yeah. Again, like,
shout out the chat for arguing about spear and shield versus sword and shield while we're just like ranting about about the people here. Like,
yeah, you guys just have your own fun while we go down a dark
well, we bemoan this. But so I will say that I think that the weapons themselves were not too bad here, but the shields,
again, the hero weapons were worse than the the extras.
Yep.
Do we go?
This is,
I don't know.
This is like a 1 or a 2 for me.
2 for weapons as well.
Like,
I can't. Yeah, again, like the extras were better, and then the main characters just did not read at all as right in any way.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I found very odd about this is often you put your like more historically questionable equipment because it makes them stand out, but this didn't. It did not help me locate these main characters and make them stand out in any way.
No. And there are plenty of things that you could have done that would have worked better, like using any amount of color. any color at all.
Not everybody has to be in brown.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, this has been cathartic.
Yeah. Fight realism. So okay, this is where I think this is the strongest part of this, in that there were some very clear parts to the battle where you had the beginning like stage where they're standing opposite each other shouting, and then they start shooting arrows, and then they close towards each other, but they stay in their lines, which was really good, and you never see that. But that was really good. They stayed in their lines and they were fighting like that, and then at the end it got more bitty, and they were fighting like 1-to-1, kind of. That's the kind of thing that would happen during the rout, but it didn't feel like they were routing. It just felt like a later stage in the battle. And then they brought in cavalry, and I just thought, oh man.
I enjoyed seeing a variety of tactics to try and break the shield wall, though I do not know, I'm not an expert in this period, how realistic these tactics were. And also, I just thought that they did a really good job portraying the fact that a battle like this is scary. People were scared. They made a big point of showing that. That was pretty realistic.
Yeah. Do we give it a 3?
Yeah, I think I can give us a 3 here. There's a couple of interesting comments as well in the chat about old films using color better. Yeah, very often, very true. Use of caltrops. Yep. Yep. I'd forgotten about that early on in this fight.
Yeah.
I mean, storytelling here, like I love these books. I thoroughly enjoyed them. This did not make me care about the story that they were trying to tell here.
No.
I didn't. And realistically, the story that they were trying to tell was there is a big fight. The main character gets wounded. Spoilers, sorry, folks.
There was no there's no character development in any of it. I didn't see these characters as characters. They were just people in the line alongside everyone else. I think what's been really interesting about looking at the other ones and being able to compare is how quickly you can create character moments in these fights. And this just didn't have any of that. And I would give it a 1 personally.
I was going to go 2 if it did have a point in the story. It wasn't just there to have a action set piece.
Okay.
Like my assumption is that the main character, I assume he's the main character. I assume that's Uhtred, right? I think they in the clip. This was a vehicle to have him be injured and wrap up his story.
Yeah.
So it has like a place in the story. It's not just a fight for having, as an action set piece's sake. This is not a Transformers fight scene. Like it's better than that. But maybe that's what gives it a 1, not a 0.
Let's give it as we have opened up to half points. Let's give it a 1.5 and split the difference.
Okay. Yeah.
So 6.5.
I mean, that's one way to add those numbers up,
isn't it? Oh no. I missed out on one of the 2s.
The costumes were so bad, you just ignored it.
I was just the costumes and the weapons get 2 between them. Okay, 8.5. We're gonna have to speed up a little bit.
I was just thinking that
getting towards our limit, but Mitchell says, I must admit you need to rely on the rest of the season for that character development. Last Kingdom does focus on the battle itself, but again, history head off. Yeah, okay, so you could say that is but what we're doing is we're thinking how good are these fight scenes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you could say you could serve me a meal and you could say, oh, well, actually the dessert and the main course are delicious. So you don't really need to have doesn't need to be delicious as well. Right? Why couldn't we have a delicious pudding as well? Right? We could. Yeah. So yeah, the fight did walk my maths. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another example of it being like, so the Excalibur Siege is our next one.
And I want to talk about the other Excalibur fight more, and I think that a lot of what we're going to say about armor and weapons is going to be the same in both of them, right?
Yeah. Not quite, because the Siege has got the earlier armor, which is not as good as the later armor.
That's fair.
But I do think that is a storytelling decision.
Yeah.
I think that what they should have done is these guys in the black plate should have been wearing mostly mail. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that would have worked. Yeah.
Could have done that instead of having poorly articulated plate that we actually have. So for the early one, so the black plate being used in the Excalibur Siege.
I think this is like 3? A 2. Yeah, I'd say this is a 2 or a 3 here.
At least it's actual armor that has been made and like hammered, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are people actually wearing it, so we know that it works.
Yeah.
It gets a bit more of a pass on that because it is a fantasy film.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like if The Last Kingdom had square shields, but it was a fantasy film, that wouldn't be a problem, right?
Well, I think the classic, the great example here is the Gondor army in Lord of the Rings. They had some really wacky shaped shields. But this is a fantasy setting. Yeah. What's more important is that they look effective and coherent and tell us about the faction that they represent.
Yeah. As soon as you've got a wizard on your cast list, that opens up possibilities for the costume department, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weapons. The swords are a bit heavy.
It's fine, but not outstanding.
Yeah. And I seem to remember that the catapult was non-functional as well.
Yes.
So I think we've probably got to go 2 for this. Non-functioning catapult bringing us down.
It makes me sad that I'm doing that, but yeah.
Oh, we're talking specifically about this scene, right?
I know.
It gets better. Yeah. It does get better.
Yes. Yeah.
Fight realism.
He jumps off the wall of a castle.
I mean, it's okay to jump off the wall of a castle. You can do that part of it easy enough.
And lands somehow pulling a guy from his horse into a waist-deep moat with nothing dangerous in it.
Yeah. We're going 2.
I think we are, yeah. Okay. Because I think the storytelling here is reasonably strong, but not fantastic. There is a expectation subversion that demonstrates the power of Excalibur here, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll go with your choice on storytelling here, because
I think this is not better storytelling than 13th Warrior.
okay.
It's this scene, but I would say it's not. I'd say this is a 3.5.
Okay. Yep. Happy to go with that. So we're looking at 10.5.
Yeah.
Overall. Okay. We are almost there.
Oh yeah.
Here we go. Last one. So this, I think I've actually got the wrong photo here, because this I think comes from a different joust. There's several jousts in Excalibur. That's how good this film is.
But we're specifically talking about Arthur versus Lancelot when he first meets him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. High quality production values we've got going on here.
Yeah, so good.
I know we're running short on time, so I'm just going to go straight away and make my pitch. Fight scenes we've seen here. This fight has the best storytelling in it.
Yep.
Everything, costume design, down to kind of the resolution of the fight, the story about Excalibur, the allusions to the wrath of Achilles, and all of this. I think just you learn everything you need to know about these characters in a very short space of time, and their progression has been up to this point and what they still need to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of all of the fight scenes here, I think this one had the best story.
Yeah. I think we're also pretty much looking at the best armor as well.
And yes, and I don't know if it's bonus points for the armor or the bonus points for the realism here, but the fact that they are mobile and reasonably quick whilst wearing full harness is really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also they get gassed fast, which is also reasonably accurate.
As we know. Yeah. So I would say costume and armor, it's not perfect, but
nope.
It's pretty close to it's as close as many, as pretty much any film has got when it comes to armor, right?
But to me, this armor sits in a very similar vein to the high quality armors that you see in Lord of the Rings. It's fantasy, but it's very close to historical functional armor. It has the right shapes. It moves in the right way. You know, you don't know what the undergarments are like here, but one assumes that if this is made appropriately, you have to have reasonably correct arming garments, otherwise this stuff doesn't work. So
yeah,
this is
I think if let's give it a 5. That's not to say that it couldn't be better, but this is as good as we can get, as we have seen.
It's definitely the best of this selection.
And it's better than a lot of historical movies.
That is true.
Yeah. Weapons is going to be lower than that.
Yeah. The lances look off to me. You would have more expertise in that, but
yeah, they're not great. The swords are a bit overdone as well. I feel a bit heavy as well.
Yeah, but there's a good, interesting mix of weapons here, and none of them are used particularly inappropriately.
Yeah. Okay. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I think it's hard to give this a 4.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my thoughts as well. Let's give it a 3.5.
okay.
Fight realism. The
So
jousting was stunt jousting, right?
yes,
Um, but then, like, how else do you film it, right?
particularly without a tilt rail, right?
Yeah. So from that point of view, yeah.
So it's probably more in the storytelling category, but like the change up of weapons and like the use of the weapons to try and like get into gaps in the armor and that kind of thing. That was good. And as I say, the movement in the armor and the ability to move in the armor was pretty realistic here. But the joust portion of it, I think you're right, it drags it down. I would say I don't think I can give this a 4.
Yeah.
But
let's go 3.5 again.
Yeah.
And what was great about this as well is that it did those things and it tried those things, right?
Yeah.
It didn't have to do all of those things, but it did. And then storytelling. So you're going to argue for a 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think I can argue against that, to be honest. You know, it's very clear, the characters. There's storytelling in every part, including the armor design. Like, you know who's who, even though they're wearing similar armor. And Arthur and Lancelot are always an interesting pair, right? Because one's the rightful king, but the other one's just better.
So, complete sidebar, but one of the reasons Lancelot is just better is because Lancelot is a fanfic self-insert by the author,
Yeah.
by a French author. So you know, there's that. But
yeah.
I also think that the armor here and what's going on here, it informs later storytelling in the story as well, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's not beat around the bush on this. Let's just give it a 5.
Yeah, let's give it a 5. Let's give it the 5.
Okay. We're looking at, if my maths doesn't fail me again, a total of 17.
There we go.
So there we have it, guys. If you were ever wondering, of these 6, which were chosen by my patrons, the best fight scene in this whole selection is the Excalibur joust. I am surprised that Black Sails is second. Not because it was bad, but because it just didn't really feel great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think go on.
I say I agree, but I mean I don't think we really like, maybe if Black Sails had come later, we might have like knocked some off a couple of its scores and like knocked it down by half a point here and there, and that would have dragged it down a little bit like we did with some of the other ones. But I think that I think this is, I feel like we've been perfectly fair and we've completely solved this conversation. There's no way that anyone could argue about anything we've said here.
No, it is objective. Absolutely. It is true. This is the truth. So yeah, there we go. Solved. We have the answers. We have given them to you. You, no doubt, will be incredibly grateful. If you've enjoyed this evening, then please do give us a like. You can share this with someone else. If you want to help out, then you can head over to Patreon as well. And next time, because we're going to do this again, our friend Christabel.
We should do this again with a guest.
Yeah, our friend Christabel was hoping to be with us and wasn't able to, and she was very upset. So we are going to be taking more suggestions, and we will do with another set of fights, and with Christabel helping too. So that'll be good fun. Let's just go through a couple of first. Texas Beast says, I blame this movie Excalibur for wrongly teaching me that full plate was around from it's the best. So of course the heroes had it. Oh well, live and learn. Yeah, I mean, full plate was around a long time, and then it disappeared, and then it came back, and then it disappeared. Hoplite armor is pretty. You can pretty much get full coverage in hoplite armor. But
I'm going to pitch that sometime this year we should do an episode about Arthuriana.
Okay.
And different media adaptations of the Arthurian legend and its historical thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Love Arthurian stuff. Let's do it. Mitchell Lawrence says I should write a segment for Living Medieval Mag.
You should. I was gonna drag your ear about that, bend your ear about that.
Okay.
Soon.
All right. Yeah. Tell me more. I've not heard of it before. But
in fact, what we should do is we should get your team on this to talk about their magazine and their publishing endeavors about living history and things.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
So we've got like 4 different topics we need to do now. So,
Yeah. Is someone making a note of these things?
I have a list, don't worry.
Brilliant. Lovely. Well, thank you all for coming along. Thank you if you're watching this back later on. That's really helpful for the channel as well. Do check out the links in the description. Thank you, Nick, for helping me out again, for being my co-host, and for making it so I'm not just doing all of this all by myself.
Thank you for having me. And as always.
Yeah, and next month we will be literally a week away from the Battle of Barnet, won't we? So
Barnet Medieval Festival. So, and tomorrow, if I remember rightly, is the anniversary of the Battle of Tewkesbury.
It is May. Yeah. May. Yeah. Lots going on. Thank you everyone for coming. We are going to say goodbye. Thank you, Lotte. Glad you enjoyed it. See you guys.